I got framed by my own fiancée and a crooked cop, landed behind bars for years, learned to survive on whispers and fists, and now I'm out with a score to settle. I'm Alex, 29, and until they shipped me off to prison, I had the perfect life planned with my fiancée, Karen. I worked a normal job, paid rent on time, and laughed at bad jokes. I never thought I'd end up trading wedding plans for prison walls, but here we are. 6 months before it all fell apart, I was scrolling through cake designs at midnight with Karen, half asleep and bouncing between vanilla and red velvet. We'd picture our life together, joking about who'd make the worst in-law. It felt simple and real. Two people who liked the same trashy shows and shared a cramped apartment without living each other too hellishly. Every weekend was ours. Movies, late brunch, the occasional road trip. No big drama, no secrets. Just us. Then the favors started. Karen would gush about Officer Ryan, how he got her free concert tickets, how friendly he was at her office holiday party, how he made her feel so safe. I laughed it off. I've never cared about free tickets, and I've got no police badge to flash around. But something in her tone shifted from casual chatter to wide-eyed hero worship. I made a joke about trading my boring day job for a gun and badge, and she laughed, but it wasn't the same. The framing happened fast. That Tuesday morning, I walked into the precinct to pick up a parking ticket dispute form. Standard crap I'd been fighting for weeks. Ryan was there, crisp uniform, halo of fluorescent light. He eyed me like I was the villain in his Sunday sermon. 2 minutes later, a sergeant slapped me in handcuffs, said I was under arrest for burglarizing a closed warehouse and assaulting a security guard. I asked for proof. "We've got you on camera," the sergeant said. Camera I've never seen. Guard I've never met. Handcuffs cut into my wrists while I sputtered innocence. I called Karen's name. She stood behind the sergeant with a placid stare, lips tight. "No, are you okay?" "No, what the hell did they do to you?" Just that same smug look Ryan wore when he showed off his shiny badge. "They said I resisted arrest." I said they made it up. The sergeant told me to save it for the judge. At the precinct, I got booked, mugshot, fingerprints, the whole humiliating package. The guy in charge of intake was chatty, asking if this was my first time. I said yes. "Thanks for making it a day I'll never forget." They fingerprinted me again after I asked if it was necessary. "Just procedure," they said. I muttered something about human redundancy. That got a glare. Then Karen gave me the final blow. She leaned close, voice low enough that only I could hear her. "Don't make this harder on both of us," she whispered. No tears. No fight. Just the chill dagger of her indifference. I clenched my jaw and watched her walk away. With every step she took, the world got colder. They shoved me into a holding cell, metal bench, inch-thick bars, a single flickering bulb. The door slammed so hard the entire block must have heard it. I landed on the bench with my heart in my throat. That was the sound of my old life dying. No ceremony, no goodbye. Just metal on metal and an echo that said you're on your own now. I sat there, bruised wrists throbbing, and realized I was still maybe 5 blocks from my apartment. In an hour, I could have been sipping coffee at our favorite cafe. Instead, I was licking imaginary wounds under fluorescent misery. The first conflict was survival. Surviving until morning, surviving until I got a call from a lawyer, and surviving until I figured out what had happened. My first move was pride. I refused to admit fear. I leaned against the cold wall and surveyed the cellmates through the mesh. Tattooed arms, haunted eyes. None of them looked like people you argue parking tickets with. My sarcasm kicked in. "Welcome to the big leagues, pal." If prison had a Yelp review, I'd give it 1 star and a warning. Do not recommend. Next was denial. I pounded on the door when the guard passed by. "I'm innocent," I shouted. He didn't slow down. Didn't even look. Later I realized that's the first challenge here, getting anyone to care. If you're innocent, it's worse, because they assume you're lying. I spent the night pacing exactly 3 paces from the wall, turning over 2 thoughts. Karen betrayed me, and Ryan framed me. For the first time, I felt both rage and dread. Rage that someone I trusted could switch sides so fast. Dread at the fight ahead, knowing I was alone behind bars and my world outside was under someone else's control. By dawn, I had a plan. Well, a sketch of one. Overwhelm them with truth. Force a lawyer to see the gap in their case. Find proof of my innocence and the proof of Ryan's guilt. At that moment, that meager idea was a lifeline. It was the conflict I had to overcome next, beating the system from inside a cage. When they opened the cell for breakfast, I walked out head high. The bright lights did not make me blink. My wrists burned, my back ached, but my spirit didn't break. I met Rocco's stare briefly through the bars before heading in. Surviving that first night felt like a hollow victory. No match for the real fight that was just beginning, but it proved one thing. They could lock me up, but they couldn't lock down my will. Day one inside taught me that prison isn't just a place. It's a trial by combat. It started at intake, a gauntlet of fluorescent lights and plastic chairs you could mistake for torture devices. The guard barked instructions like he was teaching bears to tap dance. I shuffled through fingerprint scanners and mug shots, feeling my dignity evaporate. The only word that fit was primal. They shoved me into a cell with two guys who looked like they'd never seen sunshine. One of them cracked a grin that revealed more metal than tooth. The other glared like I'd insulted his mother. No introductions, no niceties, just a silent appraisal. New meat. The first fight was inevitable. It happened in the lunch line. Prison food has one flavor profile: disappointment. Slop in a stainless steel tray. I made a dry joke under my breath about gourmet cuisine. Grin-tooth guy decided my sarcasm was a threat and knocked the tray from my hands. Slop hit the floor with a wet thud. He advanced like I'd stolen his last breath. I didn't want to fight. I'm not a brawler. But survival here means passing the aggression test. He swung at my head. Instinct made me duck and counter. No fancy moves, just a shoulder into his gut and a shove that sent him stumbling. The cellmate who glared lunged at me next. 2-on-1. Armor-plated guy versus me with nothing but adrenaline and resentment. That floor became a battleground. I ducked another swing and grabbed his wrist, twisting until he cried out. Cracked knuckle didn't slow him. We went until guards fired shots overhead, blank rounds. But that stop-drop-bang echoed through my skull. They pulled us apart with electric prods and dragged me down the hall. In solitary, I had time to replay every mistake. Lesson 1. Defend yourself and don't expect mercy. Lesson 2. Winning a fight here marks you. People respect strength more than shame. By the time they threw me back in general population, I'd bruised ribs and a new nickname I couldn't understand. Doesn't matter. Word was out. I could handle my own. That's when Rocco found me. He watched from across the yard, leaning against the chain-link fence like he owned half the prison. Beard down to his collarbone, arms covered in tattoos that told stories I didn't want to read. He didn't say much, just nodded and passed me a note when no one was looking. The note read, "I saw what you did. Not many newcomers hold their own. Meet me at the pipe shed after lockdown." I didn't trust him. Prison alliances are bargains with sharks. But I had to know why he cared. So after lights out, I slipped past a yawning guard and found the pipe shed, a rusted hunk of metal by the far wall. Rocco was there, silhouette framed by moonlight through broken slats. He offered a hand that looked like it could crush rocks. He said he owed me. Earlier that day, I'd shielded him from a guard's baton when Rocco got too mouthy. This world stuff mattered. Favors meant currency. He had info on Officer Ryan's setup, names, dates, secret off-the-books meetings. Enough to blow holes in the case. But he wanted something in return. My help stashing contraband and passing messages. No hero act here. If I wanted his intel, I had to play the game. I agreed. Partnership formed. Routine kicked in next. Up at dawn, head count, breakfast, work detail, washing sheets that smelled like bleach and regret. Yard time was the highlight, a sweaty hour of semi-organized chaos. Inmates hustled games of handball, bars echoing each hit like a metronome for wasted time. I watched everyone's habits, learning weaknesses. My dry humor slid into observations. Who brags about kids, who whimpers about parole, who stays silent. Hypocrisy was everywhere. Guards preached order while pocketing cash. Inmates whined about injustice, but ran black market trades. Everyone had a piece of the crime, or at least a taste of corruption. I found it hilarious in a bitter way, like watching a circus where clowns break each other's bones. Every day, I smuggled notes for Rocco, passing them in laundry bags or under the flour bin in the kitchen. He responded with scraps of paper telling me who to trust on the outside. Lawyers who might actually work, reporters hungry for a scandal, even tiny clues about Ryan's transfers and promotions. Piece by piece, I mapped the network that nailed me. But with every scrap, the risk mounted. A guard caught me slipping a note once. He slapped it out of my hand, read it, and laughed. "Traitor," he sneered, tossing it back with disdain. No lockdown followed. No extra beatings. Just a warning glare that said, "You think you're clever." I smirked and said nothing. Silence was my shield. Midway through the term, I felt my resolve harden. Fear had faded. Anger turned strategic. I wasn't just surviving. I was learning their rules so I could break them. Rocco became less of a stranger and more of a mentor, an unlikely ally who taught me how to move invisibly, how to read reports without being noticed, and how to signal Mills on the outside without tipping off the guards. The final obstacle before moving on was trust. Could I truly rely on Rocco? He sat across from me one night, tone serious for the first time. No jokes. No swagger. He said, "Don't screw this up. I've got skin in the game now." His eyes seemed to weigh my worth. I said, "I won't." That promise was my test. I had to prove my loyalty, not just to Rocco, but to my own burning goal. Using this brutal baptism to fuel a plan that would collapse Ryan's empire. The conflict shifted from surviving prison to a deeper question. When you form alliances in a world built on betrayal, can you trust the person you once saved? I nodded at him, and he returned a half smile. It wasn't friendship. It was necessity. And in prison, necessity rules everything. Prison changes you in stages. First, it strips you down. Then it teaches you rules no one writes down. And then, if you last long enough, it gives you a shot to rewrite your own. That was the phase I'd entered now. I wasn't just taking punches and hoarding bitterness anymore. I was building something. Dangerous, maybe, but real. Rocco wasn't some casual ally anymore. He was my co-conspirator, my fence, my damn data analyst in a jumpsuit. He had contacts from back in his day, dirty cops, ex-dealers turned snitches, a guy who ran paperwork scams from the warden's old office. Every day, he'd hand me more, names tied to Officer Ryan, judges who owed favors, disappeared, case files that never should have vanished. It was like watching a spider spin a legal web, and I was the venom waiting at the center. But nothing's free. I had to earn every scrap of info by taking risks for him. My first major job came wrapped in laundry. Rocco passed me a bedsheet bundle with a cell phone inside. Burner phone, scuffed, and taped up like someone tried to flush it once. I had to stash it behind a broken ceiling vent near the kitchen exit. If caught, I'd get locked up in solitary for a month. But if it worked, his outside contact could text in real time. Updates, surveillance, maybe even dirt on Karen and Ryan that the guards didn't know. I pulled it off, barely. Caught a guard's eye and faked a coughing fit so I could lean on the wall and slide it up through the metal grate. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might trigger a lockdown. But it didn't. 2 hours later, Rocco grinned and handed me a new note. "They're watching your girl," it read. "Ryan's moved her into a departmental housing unit." That stung more than the first betrayal. Departmental housing meant official. Sanctioned. Paid for. She wasn't just with him. She was living under his name now. She traded me in for a cop and got a condo for it. I didn't let myself spiral. Instead, I went straight to my next move, testing our legal options. There was this one lawyer Rocco mentioned, Callahan. Total burnout, borderline drunk, but hated crooked cops more than he liked getting paid. My job was to pass him a message through a prison cleric who ran weekend services. The cleric was blind in one eye and had a thing for word puzzles, so I had to write everything in code. A week later, I got my first answer. A prison librarian dropped a dictionary on my table and told me to check Chapter 7. Inside was a ripped book cover with a scribbled sentence. He buried evidence in that file. The guard never pulled the trigger, Ryan did. It was our first real crack in the story. Ryan had pinned a violent arrest on a rookie guard to protect himself. That guard was now living in Alaska with a payoff and a gag order. Classic cover-your-ass maneuver. But if we could prove that case was rigged, we could unravel others, including mine. That's when betrayal struck. A new inmate got transferred into our block. Scruffy guy named Felix who acted like he was too cool to be locked up. Always pacing. Always watching. One day he cornered me near the laundry chute and asked flat out, "You and Rocco running something?" I played dumb. He smirked and said, "Doesn't matter. I already know." 2 nights later, a guard ransacked Rocco's cell. Tossed the place like they were looking for a damn nuke. Rocco didn't blink. Just leaned against the wall and let it happen. Afterward, he lit a cigarette, prison contraband, naturally, and handed me a note that simply said, "Felix talks. Fix it." I had 2 options. Confront Felix and risk getting shanked, or play smarter. So I played smarter. I leaked bad info. Told Felix the first was planning a break. Even dropped hints about a tunnel under the kitchen. Pure fiction. Then I sat back and waited. 2 days later, guards swept the area and came up empty. Warden was pissed. Guards were humiliated. And Felix? Shipped off to solitary for spreading false intel. Problem handled. But trust shaken. Rocco and I doubled down. No more intermediaries. No more whispers in the yard. Everything became tighter. We started running shortwave messages through kitchen timers. 1 click meant yes. 2 clicks meant no. 5 clicks. Emergency. Prison turned us into goddamn spies. Every night, I added new pieces to the board. Ryan's career timeline. Karen's movement history. Corrupt judges who signed off on my warrants. Bit by bit, the story became clear. Ryan wasn't just covering his ass. He was climbing the ladder by stepping on everyone else's backs. And I'd been the perfect fall guy. No record. No clout. No one to fight for me. Until now. But gathering intel wasn't enough. I had to start steering it toward the outside. That meant contact with Agent Mills. Problem? She didn't know I existed, yet. That was about to change. Getting Agent Mills involved was like trying to summon a ghost using nothing but a crayon and a roll of toilet paper. Internal Affairs doesn't exactly hand out business cards to felons. But Rocco had a name, and more importantly, a whisper chain that stretched all the way to her desk. It started with a kitchen worker who used to run numbers for a precinct chief. He owed Rocco for something involving cigarettes and a prison shank shaped like a toothbrush. Don't ask. All I had to do was get a letter disguised as a commissary request routed through him. But not just any letter. This one had to be written like it came from a civilian source. Anonymous tip. Real polite. Just enough fact to raise eyebrows. So I drafted it in the library under the guise of literacy training. My letter started with, to the officer reviewing misconduct at 4th District. You may want to revisit the case of Alex R. False arrest tied to Officer Ryan. Suggest cross-checking report A4, K9-771 with testimony from 2019. The truths buried in redactions. No names signed. No threats. Just a breadcrumb trail, vague enough to protect me, sharp enough to pierce curiosity. The kitchen guy dropped it off using his cousin who cleaned at the IA building downtown. Apparently, dirty money flows like sewer water everywhere. And then we waited. 3 weeks. Nothing. I started thinking maybe Mills was just another cog in the system. Too slow, too buried, too scared to act. But then something weird happened. A priest showed up. He wasn't our usual Bible thumper. This guy wore a perfectly ironed collar, had sharp eyes, and looked like he carried a badge under that robe. Claimed he was doing inmate outreach. Yeah, sure. He made a beeline for me during lunch, sat down, and whispered, "Redactions are reversible." Just that. Then he slid a communion wafer across the table with a paperclip under it. Inside, a torn strip of notepad paper with 4 numbers and 2 initials. Mills. 3478. I had contact. But how the hell do you call someone from prison without tipping off every ear in the room? You don't. You signal. Carefully. So I used the law library phones, the ones nobody paid attention to because half the time they didn't work. I called a legal hotline that recorded all messages for public record. Scripted the entire thing like I was reporting a landlord dispute. Hidden in the ramble was our next move. So if the water's leaking under code 771 and the cops said it was fine in 2019, that's not legal, right? That's why I think someone needs to inspect the valve again. Maybe a higher authority this time. Not the same guy from before. He didn't see the rust. I repeated the number twice, dropped Ryan's name once, and ended it with, "Hope you can reverse the redactions." It was clumsy, probably paranoid, but it worked. 3 days later, the blind cleric handed me a church pamphlet with a single sticky note. Received. Reviewing. Agent Mills was on the case. I started noticing little shifts. Guards got twitchy. A few of them stopped showing up for shifts. Medical leave. One of Ryan's old academy buddies who worked security? Gone. Rocco's kitchen contact said the precinct had a quiet audit. Computers seized. Lockers opened. Internal Affairs was sniffing, and Ryan was sweating. But that also meant I was officially a target again. One night, my bunk got flipped. Not by guards, by someone else. My mattress was shredded. My toilet was flooded. And scrawled across my mirror in soap was, "Stay silent, hero." That's the moment I knew. Ryan knew. Maybe not everything, but enough to realize someone inside was pulling strings. So we retaliated. I told Rocco to leak a decoy rumor into the yard, said I was flipping on a drug network that Ryan had secretly protected. Let Ryan think I was about to sing the whole symphony. He panicked. The next week, a bribe came through. A guard offered me an early kitchen job in exchange for dropping any future lawsuits. The message was so poorly coded it may as well have been written in glitter. I laughed, declined, and made sure Rocco told the right people about it. Agent Mills must have been watching, because the day after that, 2 plainclothes officers showed up at visitation. Didn't speak, didn't even sit, just walked past the glass, paused near my section, and one of them tapped his pen against the side of his coffee cup 3 times. It wasn't Morse code. It was a goddamn green light. We were going. The plan was now clear. I'd keep gathering whatever evidence I could, and Mills would build the case outside. But it had to end with something public. Something no department spin doctor could sweep under the rug. We'd need to go live. And that, I knew, would take more than clever signals or sneaky notes. That would require bait. Big, dramatic, humiliating bait. And guess who'd be the cheese? Karen. Ryan. Both of them would walk into the trap with smug little smiles, expecting to bury me once and for all. They wouldn't see the cameras until it was too late. If there's one thing I learned from years in a cage, it's that corrupt people hate attention. They thrive in back rooms, phone calls with no recordings, and forms that vanish in processing. Shine a little light, and suddenly their integrity grows legs and runs. That's what Agent Mills was banking on. Her investigation had begun to rattle Ryan's precious little kingdom. From what I heard through the grapevine, mostly via Rocco's weird underground gossip chain, the internal servers at Ryan's department were seized. One guy from the precinct apparently showed up drunk and crying at a dive bar, muttering about burying files and getting burned. So yeah, Mills wasn't just poking around. She was digging up corpses. But the real fun started when I managed to sneak her an actual piece of Ryan's dirty puzzle. See, one of the inmates in laundry, let's call him Spider, used to handle some weird, off-the-books favors for Ryan back when Spider was on the street. Deliveries, unmarked packages, the usual cop goes rogue story. Turns out, Spider kept a little insurance, a note Ryan gave him with a burner number and a code phrase. Spider handed it to me one day after I stopped another inmate from stabbing him over a stolen pudding cup. Because that's the economy in here. Pudding equals loyalty. I gave that note to the same priest-looking outreach guy from earlier, tucked into a Gideon's Bible. Mills got it. The next pamphlet I received simply read, confirmed, number traced, officer lying under oath, documented. Boom. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. One of the prison guards, a sweaty, bald guy with zero neck and a face like overcooked meat, started taking extra interest in me. Random shakedowns, confiscating harmless things like pencils or socks. Even accused me of trying to smuggle ideology, whatever the hell that means. Then came the close call. I had a meeting scheduled with my public defender. Not my usual guy. This one was filling in, which immediately set off alarms. Turns out, it wasn't a lawyer at all. It was a setup. Someone pretending to be legal counsel tried to get me to admit, on a monitored recording, that I'd lied about everything, that I framed Ryan for attention. Nice try, asshole. I stayed silent and demanded to see identification. He left fast. The warden called it a clerical mix-up. Sure. The next morning, a real message came through. A slip of paper in my breakfast tray, no envelope. Just, don't speak to any counsel until further notice, M. Now I had to stay even quieter. Trust no one, not even the walls. Meanwhile, Mills had to do her part without tipping off her own department. IA has more internal rats than the prison system, and if word leaked that she was helping me, they'd throw her under the bus faster than a rookie on donut duty. So I gave her a trail instead of a story. Through Spider and Rocco, we got a list of names, other people Ryan had helped bury. 2 falsely arrested, 1 beat up during questioning, 1 who disappeared after accusing him of assault. Rocco knew people. So did Spider. The list grew. We also got something better, a contact. A former IT guy from the department who got fired for incompetence. Turns out he was just too competent. He'd flagged several odd logins on the precinct system, including a few involving falsified timestamps on my case. Ryan had erased arrest reports, then logged them under someone else's name. The IT guy emailed Mills screenshots. Not much, just enough to prove Ryan was tampering with the system. She had him. But this is where it gets tricky. Evidence doesn't mean anything if it's buried in an internal file. They'd never make it public unless they had to, which meant we needed a reason to go public. Enter Operation Humiliation. I pitched it to Mills through another message, disguised as a Bible verse reference written in deodorant on the back of a mirror. Rocco swore it would reach her. He had someone who cleaned the visitation booths. The plan? Leaked to the press that I'd be released early due to new evidence. Let that news get back to Ryan and Karen, who'd built their entire story on my guilt. Watch them panic. Then, set up a meeting under the guise of private reconciliation. Let them think I wanted to talk, beg, cry, whatever. But instead of a private room, we'd wire it up with hidden cameras and live stream the whole thing. The bait, me. The trap, their egos. Ryan, the hero cop. Karen, the brave victim. Both so eager to protect their image, they'd jump at the chance to confront me and gloat. And in doing so, they'd confirm everything, on tape, live, to the entire city. Mills didn't love it. Too public. Too messy. But she knew it would work. So she gave me the go-ahead. One final pamphlet. This time, no sticky notes. No cryptic messages. Just a single printed sentence. Live exposure has been authorized. Make them talk. And just like that, I wasn't a prisoner anymore. I was the hook, the line, and the sinker. Release day was weird. Not because I was nervous or sentimental. Please. I'd spent the last few years fantasizing about this moment more than my ex ever fantasized about Officer Ryan's utility belt. But weird because nobody really looked at me when I walked out. The guards didn't nod. The staff didn't say goodbye. It was like I'd never existed. Fine by me. Ghosts work best when no one sees them coming. I stepped into sunlight and squinted like a vampire on his first morning out. There was no one waiting for me. No cameras. No dramatic music. Just the smell of hot asphalt and the knowledge that Ryan and my ex had no clue what was about to hit them. Well, almost no clue. The media leak dropped exactly 2 hours after my feet touched freedom. A whisper to a local reporter about my early release due to investigative inconsistencies. The article didn't name names, but it mentioned Officer Ryan 3 times. And boy, did they bite. Within a day, I got a message through my lawyer, the real one they want to meet. Private. You in? I didn't even hesitate. Hell yes, I was in. We set up the location, a fancy restaurant they used to love, closed off for renovations. Mills wired the place top to bottom. Cameras and light fixtures, mics under table corners, even a live feed rigged to broadcast to a private press group. It was all legally gray as hell. But hey, so was jailing an innocent man because you wanted a new boyfriend. The plan was simple. Play dumb, act broken, get them talking. I walked in wearing the same coat I'd worn on the day I got arrested. Just to twist the knife. Sat at the booth like some freshly released chump looking for closure. They walked in 10 minutes late, of course. Ryan strutted like he owned the place, all smug jaw and clipped hair. Karen now looked thinner, paler, but still full of that fake empathy she used to use on waiters. Alex, she said like I was a dying puppy. You look tired. Yeah, prison's not really a spa, I deadpanned. You look guilty. Oh, wait, glowing. That's the word. Ryan grunted. Let's get this over with. So I let them talk. I asked questions. Why'd you do it? When did it start? Did you ever love me? Blah, blah, blah. And they answered, like idiots, forgetting the part where they were both being recorded by 8 hidden cameras and a direct live stream to a room full of journalists and IA officials. Karen sobbed at one point. Told me she thought I'd move on faster. Ryan slipped up more than once, especially when he started bragging about knowing how to make evidence disappear and how guys like me don't get real justice. Oh, buddy. That's when Mills walked in. Live. In person. Badge out. Ryan's face did a full reboot. Karen actually whimpered. Officer Ryan. Mills said, cool as hell. You're under arrest for obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence, perjury, and conspiracy to falsely imprison a civilian. You have the right to remain. He lunged for her. Big mistake. 2 plainclothes IA agents came out of the damn wallpaper like ninjas and slammed him so hard into the table, the salt shaker shattered. Karen screamed, which was almost satisfying. She wasn't arrested, yet, but Mills made it clear her statements would be part of the public case. Within the hour, the live stream hit the news cycle. And oh, it blew up. Hashtags. Headlines. Public outrage. Ryan's old arrests were re-examined. Karen got doxxed by angry strangers who didn't even know my side yet. Just saw her crying while her crooked boyfriend got tackled on camera. As for me, I walked out of that restaurant straight into a press mob. Did I give a speech? Nah. I just held up a sign I'd hidden in my coat pocket that read, "I did my time. Now it's yours." The photo made the front page. A week later, the DA announced my record was cleared. I didn't get an apology, no one ever does, but I got something better. Their house went up for sale. Ryan's pension? Frozen. Karen's job at the community foundation? Gone. Turns out, being the face of a wrongful imprisonment scandal doesn't pair well with nonprofit fundraising. The funny part? People kept asking if I felt vindicated. Here's the thing, justice isn't real. Not the way people think. There's no divine scale. No perfect gavel drop. Sometimes all you get is a stage, a mic, and the chance to burn someone down in front of an audience. And I took it. Rocco sent me a postcard from prison 2 weeks later. Said, "You owe me a pudding cup and a front row seat next time." Fair enough. They say prison changes you. No shit. It didn't turn me into some wise monk or bitter shell. It made me focused. Cold, maybe. I stopped believing in the kind of justice that shows up with a badge and a courtroom. The only kind that exists is the one you make, one move at a time, with receipts. Using internal affairs to take down Ryan felt poetic, sure. But really, it was just a strategy. Mills was a tool I needed, not some hero in shining Kevlar. I don't believe in heroes anymore. Just leverage. Karen and Ryan thought I'd come back broken. Hell, I let them believe it. That was the best part, watching their smug confidence rot in real time, knowing they'd walked straight into the trap. Am I healed? Nah. I'm sharper, smarter, hungrier. Because once you learn how easy it is to dismantle someone's life, you start looking around at all the other people who got away with it. And you wonder, who's next?